Part 1, Utica, New York to Toledo, Ohio. Note to reader, each separate journal page by William C. Holgate is enclosed by a thin line border. The numbers in the right-hand margins indicate the sequence of the commentary which has been added. I hope you will find something of interest and enjoy the readings. Louis A. Simonis. Let's see. 1:30 May 1835. Saturday's the 16th. Cold, hideous day. Am getting all in readiness for a start on Monday morning for the West. Utica, July 17th, 1835. Started as was anticipated. Saturday, the 16th May, leaving on the Monday following. It not being convenient to keep a diary in this book, I kept one upon scraps of paper, which I shall now commence transcribing here. Quotation marks. On board the canal boat Lawrence, within 5 miles of Palmyra, Palmyra, bound for Buffalo, May 20th, 1835. Wednesday, 1/2 past 11 a.m. Left Utica on Monday, the 18th of May, 1835, at 1/4 after 5 p.m. in the packet. Landed at Syracuse at 7 a.m. Tuesday. Took breakfast at the principal stage house there, kept I know not by whom. Saw Comstock, a law student in Utica a year ago, and paid our fares to Rochester in the stage. Left Syracuse about 8 a.m., passed through several very pretty little villages, and arrived at Auburn around 1 p.m. We dined. Saw Chas McDonough, son of the old Commodore, who informed me that he was boarding there and that Washington Stickney, H.S. Redfield, and 1 or 2 other older brother collegians were in the Auburn Seminary there. Being in haste, had no opportunity to make them a call. Got to Montezuma about 4 p.m. There, a little old dirty wagon and 2 horses was driven around to the door, and we were told, our amazement, that was the stage. We inquired if any of the stage proprietors resided there and were informed that none did. That one resided at Lyons, Lyons. Let's see, there's a couple cliff notes. 1, Erie Canal. The first part of the Holgate's trip to the Maumee River was along the route of the Erie Canal from Utica to Buffalo, New York, a distance by canal of 253 miles. They used the stage for part of this distance, perhaps to speed up the trip. Travel on the canal was slow and inexpensive. Times and prices quoted at the time were: the Erie Passenger Boat Company had daily service available for a run between Utica and Rochester, a distance of 160 miles, which it covered in 38 hours. Several lines charged $7 for a trip of this distance. They traveled nearly 4 miles per hour at about 4.5 cents per mile. The Erie Canal was formally opened October 26, 1825, and ran a distance of 356 miles from Albany on the Hudson River to Buffalo on Lake Erie. Within a period of 8 years, its tolls exceeded expectations. Its usefulness changed the face of New York and had a profound influence on the Great Lakes area. Along the canal, new towns appeared and land values increased, not unnoticed by Curtis Holgate, who came to investigate the potential of the Maumee River region, where canals were also heading. An act of Congress approved March 2nd, 1827, indicated the Wabash and Erie Canal would follow the Maumee River. An act of Congress approved May 24th, 1828, specified the Maumee River as part of the Miami and Erie Canal route to Lake Erie. Previous to the construction of the Erie Canal, the cost of transportation from the Great Lakes prevented shipment of most Western produce and merchandise to the seaports. Except for the fur trade and necessary items, relatively little exchange of commerce took place. During the years 1830 to 1840, the number of people living in the northwestern states, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, Iowa, Wisconsin, and Minnesota, would double. The population of the 10 largest towns in the United States, from New York to St. Louis, would increase by 55%, a trend which would continue as noted in Blackwood's magazine 1854. Quotation, especially in the towns of the Great Lakes region, towards which the influx of settlers from Europe and other portions of America as well came. End quotation. The old established ports, such as Baltimore, Boston, and Philadelphia, would soon rank below New York in total tonnage handled. In the South, the old port of New Orleans would share in the increased activity. Canals heading southward from the lakes, connecting with the Mississippi River, soon increased the population and total imports and exports of New Orleans. Its population more than doubled between 1830 and 1840. In a very real and personal sense, it was the Erie Canal which triggered the chain of events which settled the far west and started the land speculation period of the middle 1830s. Travelers on the Erie Canal in 1835, using the Immigrants and Tourists Guidebook, would have noted 54 stops from Albany west to Buffalo. With a 1978 tourist guide map, 15 of these places would be unnoticed. The old names, unnoticed now, but once called out by the boatmen in sequence and miles from Utica westward, were the following: Smith's 22, Oneida Creek 31, New Boston 40, Orville 55, Weedsport 87, Fallham's Basin 144, Ogden 172, Adams Basin 175, Oak Orchard 204, Pendleton 230, Black Rock 250, 3 miles from Buffalo. East from Utica, following as follows: Spraker's Basin 44, Coffnawaga 53, Shorehair Creek 57, and Junction 101, 9 miles from Albany. In the summer of 1978, on a 3-day cruise aboard the Ametus II from Syracuse to Lockport, you could still view the scenery, buildings, and towns that portray the progress of our nation along this historic waterway. $170 each for 2 persons took care of all expenses, including bed and board and return trip by rail. Second cliff note, Comstock. Quotation, the Democrats of Rome, New York, have elected a first-class man for the first mayor of their handsome and patriotic little city. Calvert Comstock, Esquire. The successful candidate is a gentleman of the very highest qualities of head and heart, and a man of sterling worth. And this was a quote by Albany Argus, 1870. In his journal, Holgate mentions several students who also attended Hamilton College. Through their religious and secular lives, these students helped shape the course of our young nation. Armed with their education. It looks like it continues on a different page, but okay. Armed with their education, it skips a page. From Hamilton College, they dispersed over a wide area, and many became community leaders, as did Calvert Comstock, class of 1835, and William C. Holgate, class of 1834. Calvert Comstock was born in western Oneida County, New York, July 2nd, 1812. At the age of 16, he became a teacher, then attended college for 2 years. He was, in 1835, a law student in the office of Ichabod C. Baker, and being admitted to the bar in 1835, he became a partner of Baker. From 1838 to 1855, Comstock had a successful law office in Rome, New York, was also a district attorney for about 5 years, and served a term as a member of the Assembly. During the following his legal career, he was also involved in journalism. In 1838, he took charge of the Rome Sentinel, and in 1852, with his brother Eldon, he established the Rome Daily Sentinel. When he retired from his law practice in 1855, he yielded to pressure by his political friends and became the editor-in-chief of the Albany Argus, Argus, from 1855 to 1866. Then he retired because of failing health. He returned to Rome, and 2 years later, his wife, Eliza Mansill, died, leaving 4 daughters and 3 sons. They had been married since April 27, 1836. Despite poor health and the loss of his wife, Calvert remained active in the affairs of Rome. He served as president of the Board of Education, was influential in securing a city charter for Rome, and in 1870 he was elected as the first mayor of the community. After serving New York in many ways, Calvert Comstock died at Rome, October 10th, 1876. From the 1870 Argus quotation, for while we would by no means insinuate that he is the noblest Roman of them all, he is at least noble a Roman as any among them. End quotation. Cliff Note 3, Charles McDonough, McDonoughh. Charles McDonough was the son of Commodore Thomas McDonough, who was the hero of the Battle of Lake Champlain. In this battle, the United States achieved one of the more important victories during the War of 1812. McDonough's fleet had prepared for this victory at the Curtis Holgate Dock at Burlington, Vermont. See the biographical sketch on Curtis Holgate for more details. Charles McDonough had attended Hamilton College. He apparently was about the same age as William Holgate. He was a non-graduate of the class of 1837 who had entered the college from William Holgate's hometown of Utica, New York. After a year or less in college, he was dismissed in 1835 for continual irregularities. Continual irregularities. Oh my goodness. In his college records, there was a note that he was in the U.S. Navy thereafter and lived and or died in Middletown, Connecticut. Charles McDonough's sister, Charlotte Rosella McDonough, lived in Middleton. She was married in 1844 to Henry Griswold Hubbard, who was an inventor, manufacturer, bank president, director of a number of corporations, and a state senator. Cliff Note 4, Washington Stickney. Washington Stickney, 24 years old at this meeting with Holgate, was graduated from Hamilton College 1834, a member of Holgate's class, and was attending Auburn Theological Seminary. He was graduated from there in 1837 and continued one more year doing postgraduate work. He was ordained at Cayuga, Cayuga, in the Cayuga Presbytery, October 30th, 1838, and in the Utica Presbytery, August 3rd, 1838, then served as a pastor at Exeter, Exeter, New York. Exeter. I don't know. Reverend Stickney was married twice. Apparently, he met his first wife at her home in Exeter. She was Sarah Buckingham, and they were married in 1841. Washington ceased to be a minister of the Presbyterian Church in 1844 or 1845. Independent church references place him at Canastota, New York, Fort Plain, New York, and Jefferson, Ohio. During 1861 to 1872, he resided at Lockport, New York, then went west, serving in Concord, Michigan, Minnesota, Kansas, and Missouri. Washington Stickney, born in Coshocton, New York, or Cochecton, Cochecton, New York, April 1811, and listed among the Sigma Phi Beta of New York. Died in Kansas City, Missouri, February 19th, 1883, at the age of 72. Cliff Note 5, Henry Redfield. Henry Stone Redfield attended Hamilton College without the generous help of Mr. Frank K. Lawrence, reference librarian of Hamilton College. I would have very little information on Redfield and the other former students mentioned by Holgate. The sources are generally from the Hamilton College and Auburn Theological Seminary catalogs, plus alumni records at Hamilton College, Clinton, New York. Henry Redfield was born in Watertown, New York, October 15, 1811, and became a member of the Hamilton College class of 1833 when he entered as a sophomore in 1831 from Clinton. Like many active students before and since, he also managed to get into trouble with the administration, and a letter was sent to his father about his son's irregularities. He was graduated from Hamilton in 1833 and the Auburn Theological Seminary in 1837. He was ordained by the Presbytery of Geneva, 1838, and ordained at Huron, Cayuga Presbytery, September 5th, 1839. Henry and Mary Emmeline Shapley of Oswego were married in 1839, and they moved to Lebanon, where he apparently started on his career as a minister to the people of New York State. Reverend Redfield served at Lebanon 1840 to 1844, then on to Columbus and Oriskany. He became pastor at Phoenix 1847 to 1852, National Bridge 1853 to 1854, Chestertown 1855 to 1859, and Woodville 1862 to 1863. Henry and his wife Mary raised a family and shared about 24 years together prior to her death in February 1863. The Civil War was in full swing, and in 1864, Henry was a member of the Christian Commission and enlisted in the 185th U.S. Volunteers and served until 1865. In 1867, he returned to Lebanon and was pastor 1867 to 1869. Finding a companion for the balance of his life, he married Maria C. Hunting of Bellevue in 1870, and they resided at Westfield, where Henry kept busy, frequently supplying churches. Henry Stone Redfield died at the age of 80 while visiting his son, J.T. Redfield, in Newell, Newell, Iowa, November 2nd, 1891, and was survived by his second wife and 4 sons by his first marriage. All right, now I got to go back because these cliff notes are... There was a page in between with the title The Westward Movement with 6 pictures. And the caption is, the computer maps shown on these 2 pages were supplied through the courtesy of the Laboratory for Computer Graphics and Spatial Analysis, Harvard University, for inclusion in this work. The maps are based upon the U.S. consensus reports for the dates shown. From this Harvard report, Manifested Destiny, quotation, in 1790, the United States had about 4 million citizens, nearly all of whom lived within 200 miles of the Atlantic Ocean. At that time, the non-Native Americans occupied only 240,000 square miles of territory in the 48 states to be. The other 90% of the land was known mainly by rumor. Inevitably, the rumor spread, the people pursued, and the republic oozed westward. In a century's time, 60 million people had engulfed the frontier. The 6 pictures show kind of a drawing of the United States, and then uh, there's like peaks, so like where big cities must have been. So kind of like a view of where people were, where the population was residing. So 1790 U.S. population 3,929,214, and it's all on the East Coast and a little bit in looks like Southern Ohio area. 1800 U.S. population 5,308,483. 5,308,483. Ohio grew to 45,365. Indiana 5,641. Michigan unknown or 0. And then in 10 years, 1810 U.S. population grew to 7,239,881. Ohio went from 45,000 to 230,760. Indiana 24,520, and Michigan 4,762. And then in 10 more years, 1820, U.S. population 9,633,822. Ohio 581,295. Indiana 147,178, and Michigan 8,765. 10 more years, 1830, U.S. population 12,866,020. Ohio 937,903. Indiana 343,031. Michigan 31,639. And then in 1840, U.S. population grew to 17,069,453. Ohio 1,519,467. Indiana 685,866. Michigan 212,267. Okay. So then we're back to the journal. Okay. So for it to make sense, Hoagie's journal read, we inquired if any of the stage proprietor resided there, and they were informed that none did. That one resided at Lyons, Lyons. And then he goes on to say, oh, it doesn't even, it's like a rhymed. Sorry, I apologize for my confusion, but it says it's continued, but there's like a dash with an ED, but like a word ended, but it doesn't match up. Anyways, okay, so the next page of journal starts, it's like 1835 May. Ed staged there. So we resolved to go the 18 miles, pass through the Montezuma marshes, 2-3 miles in extent, and after coming down once, nearly down more than once, arrived at Lyons at 9 p.m. Our first inquiry was whether we were to be sent through the remainder of the route in such vehicles, and being told we were, we informed the landlord that we would tarry with him that night, and the proprietor that we would seek a redress for a grievance, and went to bed. And tarry is TRRY, so I don't know. Landlord that we would tarry with him, so maybe that means like spend the night. In the morning before 5, rose and discovered a line boat approaching, hailed it without ceremony, and got on board. It was the Lawrence Merchants Line. By the way, this is written without like periods or commas, so kind of difficult to read. Rochester, Thursday, 21st, May 21st. Left Palmyra, passed through several villages during the PM. Weather fine. During the evening, passing through an extensive swamp, was much entertained by the multitudinous music, musick, that saluted mine ears. On one end of the boat was a fiddle going to the tune of Grand Quick Meter. On t'other were Methodist psalm tunes, lugubriously, Lugubriously, lugubriously sounding, and upon either side the vacuum was made up by whippoorwills, frogs, owls, and reptiles than the like of which none other was ever before heard. About 9 p.m., past the great sand banks, so dark had to strain pretty considerable to penetrate the depths beneath. Retired to my berth soon after 9. Retired to my berth soon after 9. He had a hard time of it, the boat being crowded. I was obliged to get in a low, close airless hole, which was a sailor's berth, who soon after coming in jammed me pretty suffocatingly up against the farther side. After standing it with all due patience, without shutting my eyes till 11, crawled out and dressed, and in the course of an hour. Oh, there's a little note at the bottom that says incomplete sentence with a correction written above it. Correction then crossed out. I don't know. All right. So crawled out, and in the course of an hour, felt inclined to get back again. So just slipping into the fore part of the berth, took the air and jammed in my turn, the fellow smack against the farther suffocating side. He stood it, for he was used to it, lay in this pleasant predicament till 1 a.m. without closing my eyes on act of the bang slang of the boatman tramping in and tramping out, taking a bite and taking a snooze. When Jojo was cried from deck, "Your time is up," and to my relief, my bedfellow companion replied and soon aroused himself, leaving me alone with my glory, which I done justice to by sinking into a slumber for which I awakened not till the roaring of the falls of Rochester, and the daylight greeted me. Arose. Went to the stage office to get a passage, but father wanted to ride in the easy-going boat, so we gave up the notion for the present. Wind strong, pretty cold. Not feeling as though I could partake of the breakfast prepared in the cabin, went to a by tavern in Rochester, broke my fast with the whole of the morning's milk, which was exact to my fancy. Left Rochester at 8 a.m. The passengers principally consist of 5 families immigrating to Ohio, farmers. One very handsome girl, about 17 among them, another very pretty redhead, about 15. Well, I gotta stop there for now.